Welcome back, fellow goons. This is Jim with GGF, Gundam Gooters Federation, and I'm bringing you a deck profile. This is going to be my updated Epyon deck profile, although this one's going to be a bit different than the one that I used, both in that first place profile as well as the one that I used to win the NTC. This is going to be one that's tailored more for battling against aggro. I can't say this strategy is completely foolproof because at the end of the day, you're still playing top-end cards, which, you know, when you draw them, sometimes you're going to brick up on them and you're just not going to be able to play them, and then aggro is just going to high roll you, and sometimes you're just going to lose because of that. But aside from that, there are ways to make the matchup more favorable. So that's why I've made this sort of anti-aggro variant. Now, there's a couple things that you could consider with this list, but I'll get to that in a bit. The first thing is 4 Ilfrith, 4 Rick, and 3 excuse me. This is just your standard blocker package. You want as many of these as you can. I thought about the 4th Zowart, but I've opted over a 4th Striker pack. And I still want to make sure this deck is going to be able to contest other stuff, because One-Year War is not the only deck, and sometimes you need your late game cards. But with that said, we'll go right into the Epyon package. This list is I'm playing 3 Tallgeese and 3 Epyon. So the point of this, which by the way, here's your pilot Zex. The reason we're playing these numbers is Epyon is good in the late game matchups. It destroys big boards like it's its job. Zex is just a really good pilot. He helps you keep cards. But Tallgeese is like your MVP in this particular matchup that we're building this for. And that's because going second especially, you can play it on turn 4. And you can still have your EX resource left. You can swing into anything, kill it, draw a card, and then when it attacks while linked, you get to rest up to a 2 HP dude. So you can take one of their other guys that they haven't attacked with, say they just boarded like 2 1-drops, you can attack something, rest one of their 1-drops, and then kill it with something else. You should have a bunch of blockers. Now, you might still end up taking a lot of damage, but Tallgeese is going to be how you fight back boards on top of your blockers. And then, of course, our other MVP is going to be our RX-78 and its partner in crime, Amuro Ray. So the cool thing about this card is because it has Repair 2, it can fight back weenie boards without being linked, and it just repairs afterwards. So unless it's attacking like Rickdom or something else that the deck usually doesn't play a whole lot of, it's just going to run into 2/2s very often, which means it's going to clear them, not take any damage, and then they have to deal with it basically with their own copy of it, because nothing else in their deck can actually deal with it aside from RX-78 and Sharzaku. Or I guess anything that links. And then, of course, the Amuro, it's really good because you're trying to rest down their stuff. The rest of our anti-rush stuff is that we're on 4 Nahal Argama and 4 Striker Pack. This is because you want to have as many blockers, but you also want to have as many like cards that give you value out of your shields. And it's devastating when Nahal Argama or this appears out of your shields against an aggro deck. It literally forces sometimes to end their turn. Also, Nahal Argama is another card that lets you rest stuff proactively, so you can play it on your turn, rest one of their guys, swing at it with Tallgeese, rest another guy, kill the guy you attacked, draw a card, and then attack over the card you rested with Tallgeese with something else.
Hold it!
Eventually, when you're taking out 2 of their dudes every turn, the deck is going to stall out, and they're going to rely heavily on their links to take damage off of you. That's why having these is so important. To round out our top end, we're on 4 Justice. Sorry about the proxy. I'm waiting on my 4th copy to come in the mail. But the reason we're on Justice over Freedom is because Freedom's good. Don't get me wrong. But in order for it to be super prominent, you also need to have the Kiras, you need to have multiple blockers, the Archangel, all that stuff is what makes Freedom so potent. It's almost like playing Zeta, though. You need like a bunch of cards for it to be good. Justice is just a good card. It boards a 2/2 blocker on play, and then sure, we're not playing the correct pilot to link it, which means it will never attack the turn it's played, but it means that you get to block with it and you'll still have a body left. And depending on the matchup, this can also help in the mirror when you're playing against blocker heavy decks, because you're playing 2 guys for 1. And this is a big body. Like, even if they rested with Amuro, it's big enough to kill RX-78 back. So, like, Justice just has a few really niche uses, and it feels like a better card, well, a better 1 card than Freedom, without considering any of the other cards that go with Freedom. Now, you can mess around with other cards. You can still play Freedom. You can play less Justice. You can play Sword Strikes. That's probably another card that should be considered in this list. But again, this is an Epyon variant, so that's probably also where you can fit in like Sword Strikes if you just didn't want to try for Epyon and stuff. The rest of the deck is just consistency boosters for the most part. We're still on our 4-3 split of the draw cards. That's never going to change in blue-white in my experience. We were on 1 Unforeseen Incident. Now, the reason we're only on 1 is because we're on 2 copies of Naval Bombardment. This card is really cool because it allows your weak blockers to make favorable trades into stuff like RX-78, because it gives a blocker +3 attack power for the turn at action speed. So this card allows your Elfrith, Rictius, or your Zowar or your Striker token to literally trade with anything 5 HP or less. 6 HP if you're counting Zowar and Rictius, because they're 3. Or even 7 if you have the Sword Strike token. It's just a really potent card. It isn't seen all the time, so this card has some really like surprise factor. You can't really plan for it. So the fact that this card is just as potent as this. It also has the same burst. So, like, if it's bursted out of your shields, you get to -3 something for the turn. But in hand, it's super good to make sure that your blockers are making favorable trades. Because against stuff like RX-78, they usually don't. But with that said, that is our anti-rush-ish variant of blue-white Epyon. Like I said, if you decided to take out Epyon and just go like 4 Tallgeese, maybe 4 set 2 Tallgeese, 1 or 2 starter deck Tallgeese, just so you have a sort of top end, and you can use it to just fight back aggro boards. That's probably not the worst thing either, too. Epyon's just my favorite Gundam, so I'm just making sure that I'm keeping consistent and playing it. But I will say, Tallgeese in that matchup is so good. Especially if they can't counter it with our X78 and they're forced to try and trade like 2 more guys into it just to remove it, because it's got 5 HP, which means the only stuff that's going to be able to take it out in 2 hits is like Rick Dom, and that's pretty much it. Everything else in the deck is 2/2, with the exception, I think, of maybe Sharzaku. And if that's, yeah, Sharzaku's a 3/2. So, it's going to take at least 2 things to take it out, and you've already gotten a card back. And if it gets to stick around, it just puts on constant pressure, especially if they have any dudes already rested. It's just going to make it feel really bad for them to put any cards on the table as long as you can keep outing them. And that's the whole point of this deck. But with that said, I hope you really enjoyed the profile, guys. Feel free to leave a comment, and please like and comment and subscribe. Have a good day.